A driver in Texas got walked out of the terminal for covering a camera that pointed at his own face. Another driver lost a 20-year career for taking his tractor home on a Friday night. Neither of them broke a single law. The federal rulebook is one thing, the company policy handbook is another, and the gap between those two documents has ended more careers than any roadside inspection ever will. Today we're counting through 15 things drivers do every day that are perfectly legal and can still get you fired on the spot. And wait until we get to number 11, because on that one, the law is actually written to protect you. It still doesn't matter. If you drove in the paper logbook days, you remember when the only rule book that counted was the one in the glove box. These days, every truck is a rolling office full of sensors, and every carrier has a policy team writing rules the government never asked for. Every item on this list came from real terminations, real arbitration cases, and real drivers telling their stories. So let's start with the one that probably happened to somebody you know. Number 1. The personal conveyance parking move. Picture it. You've run out your 14-hour clock at a shipper in the middle of nowhere, the receiver won't let you stay on the property, and the nearest truck stop is 9 miles up the interstate. Federal guidance is actually on your side here. FMCSA says, a driver relieved of duty can move the truck under personal conveyance to reach the nearest safe parking. That's the law working the way it should. The problem is your carrier. Most of the big fleets either disable personal conveyance in the ELD entirely or geofence it down to almost nothing. And when a driver uses it anyway, safety doesn't call it personal conveyance. They call it log falsification. Those two words are career poison, because a falsification termination follows you into your DAC report, and every recruiter sees it. Drivers have been fired for moving a truck 400 feet across a parking lot to get away from a reefer unit screaming all night. Completely legal under federal guidance, completely fireable under company policy. And if that seems backwards, the next one is even stranger, because it punishes drivers for reading the regulations too carefully. Number 2. The 8-2 split. The split sleeper berth provision is written right into the hours of service rules. A driver can break the required 10 hours off into 2 chunks that add up to at least 10, with at least 7 of those hours in the sleeper berth, and pause the 14-hour clock in between. Old-timers use splits for decades to run around rush hour traffic in Atlanta or Chicago instead of sitting in it. It's legal, it's smart, and honestly, it's often safer because you're resting when you're tired instead of when a clock says so. But here's what happens at a mega carrier. The safety software sees a split and flags it as irregular logging. A safety manager who has never held a CDL calls you in and asks why your logs don't look like everybody else's. Do it a few times and you're labeled a fatigue risk. And fatigue risk is a phrase that shows up in termination paperwork. Drivers have literally been fired for using a rest provision the federal government spent years designing. Now that one cost you your job quietly. This next one shows up on a spreadsheet every single week with your name on it. Number 3. Idling the truck all night. It's July in Phoenix, 111 degrees on the fuel island, and you're supposed to sleep in a metal box. Most states have idle laws, sure, but nearly all of them carry temperature exemptions exactly for this, and plenty of states have no meaningful idle enforcement at all. Running the engine to keep the sleeper livable is legal where most drivers park. Your company, though, tracks something called idle percentage, and there's a target number, and your name goes on a ranked list in the terminal every week. Miss the target long enough and the write-ups start. Keep missing it and you're gone. Terminated for fuel policy violations, which is a polite way of saying you refuse to sleep in an oven. The bitter part is that many of these same carriers spec their trucks without AP-US to save money, then punish drivers for the only alternative left. A veteran driver in Oklahoma put it best. They'll spend $100,000 recruiting your replacement, but they won't spend $8,000 on an APU. But if you think they watch your idle time closely, wait until you hear how closely they watch where you buy fuel. Number 4. Fueling off the network. There is no law anywhere in America that tells a trucker where to buy diesel. If the truck stop across the street is 40 cents a gallon cheaper than the chain your company contracts with, buying there breaks exactly zero regulations. But almost every large carrier runs what they call a fuel solution. The computer picks your fuel stops based on contracted discounts, and the route planning assumes you'll obey. Fuel off the plan even once, and it generates a violation. Do it a handful of times and you're sitting across from a fleet manager explaining yourself. Drivers have been terminated for buying fuel with their own money at a station the computer didn't approve. Fired for spending your own cash at a legal business. The company's argument is that their negotiated discounts save millions, and that's true. What they don't say is that the computer routinely routes drivers past cheap fuel to hit a contracted pump that's out of route, off the clock, and crowded. Speaking of things the company would rather control, the next hack is one they genuinely fear, and it involves nothing more than your own telephone. Number 5. Recording your calls with dispatch. In roughly 3/4 of the states, the law only requires one party in a conversation to consent to recording, and that party can be you. So when dispatch tells you over the phone to run a load you can't legally deliver on your remaining hours, and you hit record, you have done nothing illegal in a one-party consent state. The same person who told you to drop the trailer in that lot will swear in the office that they never said any such thing, and without a recording, it's your word against a keyboard. But pull out that recording in a meeting and watch what happens. You might win the argument, and then 2 weeks later you're terminated for violation of the company communication policy, breach of trust, or some paragraph in the handbook you never read. The recording was legal. Keeping your job after they learn you make recordings is another matter entirely. Now let's shift to something a little closer to the heart, because number 6 has probably ridden shotgun with half the people watching this. Number 6. The unauthorized co-pilot. There is no federal regulation that says a dog can't ride in a commercial truck. None. There's a passenger authorization rule for people, but your carrier controls that authorization, not the government, and for pets there's nothing at all in the FMCSA books. Yet drivers get fired over dogs constantly. Some fleets charge pet deposits north of $1,000, some ban animals completely, and some allow a dog on paper but terminate you when the terminal manager finds the dog hair. Same story with a spouse riding along. Plenty of drivers whose wives rode with them for 30 years discover the new mega carrier that bought their company wants 6 weeks of paperwork and an insurance rider before she can sit in the passenger seat of the truck her husband lives in. Do it without the paperwork and it's an unauthorized passenger termination, even though no law was touched. For a long-haul driver, that dog is the difference between a hard life and an unbearable one, and every veteran knows it. But the companies aren't just worried about who's in your cab. Number 7 is about what's in your trailer. Number 7, the rolling U-Haul. A driver gets dispatched on a deadhead, 600 miles pulling an empty trailer, and his daughter happens to be moving apartments along the way. So her couch and a few boxes ride in the nose of that empty 53-footer. Ask a DOT officer at a scale house and he'll shrug, because there's no regulation against furniture in an empty trailer as long as it's secured and you're not running a freight business off the books. No placards needed for grandma's dresser. But if the company finds out, and trailer sensors and gate cameras mean they usually do, the phrase is unauthorized use of company equipment, and that phrase sits in nearly every handbook as an immediate termination offense. Drivers have lost jobs over a mattress, a riding mower, even a load of firewood for their own stove. The trailer was empty, the freight was never at risk, no law was broken, and the career ended anyway. And that brings us to the big one. Number 8 is the single most argued about item on this list, and it's mounted about 18 inches from your face right now if you drive for a large fleet. Number 8, covering the driver-facing camera. Let's be clear about the legal side first. No federal law requires an inward-facing camera in a truck. Road-facing cameras are one thing, and most drivers have made their peace with those because they've saved plenty of careers when a four-wheeler brake checks a loaded truck. But the lens pointed at the driver's seat is different. It watches you drive, it watches you eat, and in plenty of setups it sits inches from where you sleep. So drivers do the obvious thing. A ball cap over the lens, a strip of electrical tape, an air freshener hung just right. Covering it violates no law whatsoever, because the camera itself was never legally required. And yet this might be the fastest firing in the industry. Fleets treat a covered camera as tampering with safety equipment, and drivers have been terminated the same day. Some walked out of terminals, some fired over the phone in a parking lot 2,000 miles from home. The companies say the footage protects drivers. The drivers ask why the protection needs to watch them sleep. Somewhere in that argument is the entire story of what happened to this industry. If this list is hitting close to home, do me a favor and hit subscribe. This channel digs into the real side of trucking every week, the stuff the recruiting brochures leave out, and it helps more than you'd think. Now, back to the countdown, because number 9 happens on your own time, which is exactly the problem. Number 9, the 34-hour side hustle. When a driver takes a 34-hour restart, that time is off duty. Legally, off-duty means the company doesn't own it. There's no regulation against spending your reset helping your brother-in-law roof a house, driving for a ride share in your personal car, or working the counter at the family shop. The hours of service rules restrict commercial driving, not living, but buried in most employment agreements is a moonlighting clause, and next to it a fatigue management policy. And together they let the carrier claim that any paid work during your reset compromises safety. Drivers have been terminated after a manager spotted them in a rideshare app or saw a Facebook post of them working a weekend job. The company's position is that they need you rested. The driver's position is that a man's time off belongs to the man. Courts have gone both ways, but the firing usually sticks long before any court sees it. And if the company watches your days off that closely, imagine how they watch your logbook. Which brings us to a trick as old as the ELD mandate itself. Number 10, the malfunction switch. The regulations say that when an electronic logging device malfunctions, the driver reverts to paper logs for up to 8 days while it gets repaired. That's not a loophole. That's the written procedure, right there in the rulebook. And for drivers who ran paper for 20 or 30 years, going back to the grid is like riding a bicycle. So some drivers discovered that ELDs malfunction at remarkably convenient moments. A unit that resets when a fuse works loose, a data connection that drops in certain places. During those paper days, a logbook becomes flexible in ways veterans remember well. One problem: claiming a malfunction is legal and running paper during one is legal, but the telematics record every reboot with a timestamp. And when the pattern shows the device failing every time a load runs tight, safety doesn't need to prove anything to a judge. They just need the pattern, and the word falsification goes in your file on the way out the door. The old tricks still exist. The old privacy doesn't. But now we've arrived at number 11, the one from the top of the video, and this one ought to make your blood pressure climb. Number 11, refusing the unsafe load. This isn't just legal. It's federally protected. The Surface Transportation Assistance Act says a carrier cannot fire, discipline, or discriminate against a driver who refuses to operate a vehicle when doing so would violate a regulation or when the driver has a reasonable fear of serious injury. Bald tires in a snowstorm, a load that can't deliver without blowing through your hours, breaks out of adjustment. Refuse it, and Congress itself says your job is protected. Now here's what actually happens. The smart carriers never fire you for the refusal, because their lawyers read the same statute. Instead, your miles quietly dry up. You sit at truck stops waiting on loads that never come. Your home time requests get lost. Pre-plans vanish. 3 weeks of starvation wages later, the driver quits, and the company files it as a voluntary resignation. There are drivers who fought this through OSHA whistleblower complaints and won 6-figure settlements, but those cases take years, and a man with a mortgage doesn't have years. The most protected right in trucking, and carriers found the workaround. On the next one, though, drivers found a workaround of their own, and it involves the shortest commute in trucking. Number 12, bobtailing home. Nothing in federal law prevents a driver from operating a tractor without a trailer. Bobtailing is as legal as driving a pickup. So when a driver finishes a run 40 minutes from his house on a Friday and the next load doesn't pick up until Monday, the math is obvious. Drop the trailer in the yard, bobtail home, sleep in your own bed, kiss your wife, mow your own grass. Drivers did this for generations, and plenty of small outfits still encourage it because a driver who sees his family stays with the company. But the big carriers wrote it out of existence. The truck must remain at approved locations, the handbook says, and taking it home without written authorization is unauthorized use of company equipment. Remember the man from the opening of this video, the 20-year driver fired for a Friday night bobtail? Real case, and far from the only one. GPS pinged the tractor in his own driveway, and Monday morning he was unemployed. Never mind that the truck was safer in his driveway than in the crime-ridden drop yard the company preferred. And if the companies dislike where you park the truck, wait until you hear how they feel about you filming it. Number 13. The dash cam channel. The termination letters all read the same way. Company logo visible in the footage. Company equipment shown without authorization. Statements that disparage the company, which sometimes meant nothing more than answering a comment honestly about how many miles a driver actually got that week. So what did these drivers do wrong? They filmed their own workday. Somewhere along the line, truckers discovered that people love watching trucking. Ride-along videos, snowstorm runs through Donner Pass, dash cam footage of four-wheelers doing unbelievable things on the interstate. Filming your own day in public spaces is legal, and talking about your own job is generally protected speech. Some drivers built channels with real audiences and real income doing exactly that. But social media policies at major carriers now run pages long, and they're written broadly enough that almost any video can qualify as a violation if someone in the office wants it to. The company can't stop you from filming. They can absolutely stop employing you afterward. More than a few of trucking's biggest YouTubers got their start with exactly that kind of termination, which is maybe the best revenge available. 2 left now, and number 14 hides inside the rulebook itself. Number 14. The adverse conditions stretch. The hours of service rules contain a genuine escape hatch. When a driver runs into conditions he couldn't have known about at dispatch, unexpected snow, fog, a highway shut down by a wreck, he can extend his driving window by 2 hours to reach safety or finish the run. It's a sensible rule written for the real world. And drivers notice that the definition of unexpected has some give in it. Weather is unexpected if you squint. Traffic in Atlanta is technically always a surprise. So the adverse conditions exception became the industry's favorite legal overtime. 2 free hours claimed with a log annotation. Used honestly, it's exactly what the regulation intends, and no officer will fault it. Used every week, it shows up as a pattern in the carrier's safety software, and a pattern of exceptions reads like a driver planning to run illegal and papering over it. Terminations for exception abuse land in the falsification category. The worst possible words on a work record. The rule is legal. The habit is fatal. Which brings us at last to number 15, the most universal hack in trucking, sitting in the wallet of nearly every driver watching. Number 15, the points game. Every gallon of diesel pumped at the major chains earns loyalty points, and a company driver fueling 3,000 gallons a month racks them up fast. The points buy showers, meals, coffee, whole pizzas, and at the end of a good year, some drivers cash them into serious merchandise. The legal reality is simple. The points go to the loyalty account holder, which is the driver, even though the company paid for the fuel. The IRS has never seriously come after trucker shower credits, and no statute says those points belong to anyone but the name on the card. But a number of carriers decided otherwise. Some demand the points be surrendered to the company. Some route fuel purchases through corporate accounts specifically to capture them. And yes, drivers have been disciplined and even terminated for keeping rewards the company claims as its own, fired over pizza points from fuel they pumped in the rain at 5 in the morning. Of everything on this list, this one might be the pettiest, and somehow that makes it the perfect place to end. So look at what all 15 of these have in common. Not one of them breaks a law. Every single one breaks a policy, and in trucking today, policy is the law that actually governs your life. The rule book that matters isn't printed by the federal government. It's printed by the carrier, it changes without notice, and it always seems to change in one direction. The drivers who lasted 30 years in this industry didn't survive by memorizing regulations. They survived by learning which rules were real and which ones were leverage. So here's the question for the veterans watching. Which one of these have you seen end a career, or which one did you get away with for years? Drop it in the comments, because the younger drivers scrolling through them will learn more from your stories than from any orientation video a carrier ever made. Drive safe out there.